Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the High Five Preschool and Kids Weekly Training Podcast. My name is Rachel, and I'm here with Crystal and Kayla, and we're so excited to jump in to our third session of the month of September. This month, we've been teaching our simple truth, God knows me, and I am known. And in preschool, we've been teaching our big deal, up, down, all around, God knows me, and teaching kids that they are known through our theme, aha. So this week, we are teaching that God knows every hurt, and we're in the book of Job. So as we start to think about how God knows every hurt that we have, I have a question for you, Kayla and Crystal, about hurts and bad days. So when you're having a bad day, what do you do to help yourself feel better?
That's a good question. I think it probably depends on what kind of bad day I'm having. Sometimes I just need a nap. Sometimes I just need a snack. I'm not much different than a 2-year-old, apparently. But I think if it's a more introspective, I'm stressed about something. I often like to just try and take a break, go for a walk, take some deep breaths, and just kind of remind myself of reality, because I feel like sometimes on those bad days, the problem that I'm experiencing feels bigger than what it actually is. And so the more I can just get a little bit more grounded in reality and remind myself of what's true, always helps.
That's great. Crystal, what about you?
Well, first off, if you listen to the podcast 2 weeks ago, I talked about loving musicals, and Kayla said the line, she said, take a break, and it makes me start singing a song in my head. So sometimes I don't even hear what people say because I'm singing songs in my head, but I did hear what you said, Kayla. It was good stuff. I will agree. It does depend on what kind of bad day. My go-to is usually going to be some DoorDash. Usually it'll be some DoorDash Thai food. Occasionally it'll be a burger or something. And then I love to just watch a movie that I can get lost in. So something that is really heartfelt, or something that just is really thought-provoking. And the thing is that I want the movie on, but I also want to be scrolling on my phone at the same time. Like, I feel like that's just the perfect kind of pick me up. But without fail, I will always text my friends. I'll just send a text and I will just say, hey, I could use a pick me up. Send me some funny memes or something. And it really does help. Like, I'm so thankful for the friends that God has placed in my life. Because I really do feel like he works through them to comfort me when I'm hurting and having a bad day. So, yeah, that's my answer. Friends and DoorDash, sometimes together.
That's awesome. I'm with you, Crystal. I'm a little treat person.
Yeah.
I'm having a bad day, I'm like, I just need a little treat.
A little just a little something.
Yeah. A little treat that's comforting. Or if it's more just I need to talk something out with someone, then that always helps too. Like kind of unpacking it a little bit. But if it's more just like it's been a hard day for minor inconveniences, then a coffee or a little treat of some kind can really bring comfort.
Rachel, you got to tell us what your favorite little treat is in case people want to send you something.
It's not fancy. It's like a coffee, or we just got a boba tea place here in Murray, Kentucky, which is a big deal. And so that's definitely my favorite little treat.
I love it.
But even on hard days, we can find comfort in lots of things. But what I think is the most comforting is that remembering God knows every hurt. And so whatever we're facing, he's there with us, and he offers us healing through Jesus. And this week, you may have noticed that we're talking about Job, chapters 1 through 42, which is the whole book. So you may be asking, how in the world are we going to handle the entire book of Job in 1 week for preschoolers and kids? So Kayla, would you walk us through this and how we're going to handle the book of Job with the different age groups and just talking through the story of Job?
Yeah, definitely. So we chose the book of Job, one, because it's such an incredible story of God's faithfulness, but two, you really see tangible hurts that happen in Job's life throughout this story. You see things that are taken away from him, things that don't make sense, things that are confusing and hard for a long time without answers. And so we feel like this Bible story in particular really fits well within the context of what we're teaching about how God really knows everything about us, including every hurt that we experience. And one of the reasons that we wanted to tell the full story in one session, one is because we don't know that we're going to have kids the week before or the week after that are going to be there at the same time. And so we always want to cover the full scope of scripture that we can, and not assume that we can do a 2-part Bible story, because kids may only get one part of that. And so we want to be faithful to the full context of scripture to the best of our abilities. But I would say another reason that we really wanted to handle the book of Job in this way is because we don't see resolution until the very end. And so if we only give the bad news without the good news, then we're telling kind of an incomplete story there as well. And so the way that we handle this with kids and with preschoolers is to be really age appropriate and also just aware of what's happening in the story and what's happening in kids and preschoolers' lives. So we do a lot of summarizing. We spend a lot of our time in the beginning and then the end of the book, where we really talk about, we set the context of what is happening within the story. We do talk about, Satan comes before God. God mentions how much Job loved and respected God. And so Satan suggests that the only reason that Job does this is because of his life was so good. And so God gives Satan permission to test Job in all of the different ways that happens. We touch on the friends that, what great friends that they were. But then we want to land and really end the Bible story talking about God's response. And God's response is not maybe what Job wanted at the time, but it's what he needed, because God was able to say, were you there when I made the earth? Are you the one who told the sea where to stop, or where the sun would rise, or when the snow would fall? Did you put the stars in the sky? So I guess kind of like my own answer earlier of like, hey, ground myself in reality. It was a moment for Job to understand and realize his hurts were real and the things that he felt were real. And there's not a reason to discount that. And also, God is so much bigger than the hurts that we see and recognize. And so we felt like it was really important to kind of cover that whole scope to see what the context of the story is, what's happening, but then also bring it back full circle to help our kids and preschoolers draw out those applications that God does know every hurt that we experience. And also the way that he responds, the way he answers might be different than what we expect. That doesn't change who God is and how much he loves us and how much he cares for us.
That is so good. Thank you for sharing that, Kayla. Because this week, that's what we're talking about, how God knows every hurt. And so we're going to talk about the physical hurt and then physical healing Job experienced, and spiritual hurt and spiritual healing. And physical healing is a much easier concept for preschoolers and kids to grasp than spiritual healing. So, Crystal, how can we help preschoolers and kids understand the concept of spiritual healing, especially when the hurts we suffer on the inside do not always seem to go away?
So if I can start by maybe giving a quick little thing as a reminder to all of the leaders listening as well. When I think a lot about hurt in our lives, and especially this idea of like, why would God allow this to happen? Which could very much be a question that some preschoolers and kids might ask when they hear the story. Like, but why did God even allow that? There is an aspect of our relationship with God that we uniquely experience in the face of hurt, and that is his comfort. You don't need to be comforted if you're not hurting, but God's comfort is something that is amazing, and it is something that he promises us rather than promising us everything's going to be great, everything's going to be easy, you're never going to hurt, you're always going to be happy. What he says is when things like this happen, you can turn to me. When things like this happen, I see it, I know it, and I love you in the midst of it. So we need to remember that as leaders, because I think even as we talk about kids wondering about this, I think as adults we can struggle with that as well. And so in that more preschool kid friendly way, we talk about, yeah, we understand you know what a hurt is when you have to put a Band-Aid on it, or maybe you've broken a bone, or somebody who's broken a bone, or maybe you've even seen somebody who is sick. God can absolutely heal those hurts. He doesn't always, but he can. And when he doesn't, he offers his love. He offers his presence. He offers this comfort that is unlike anything else. And the same is true when we hurt on the inside, because we hurt on the inside too. We can feel sad. We can feel disappointed. We can feel worried and anxious. We can feel shame and embarrassment. These are all hurts that kids carry on the inside. And what we get to tell them is God sees those hurts, and he knows those hurts, and he can handle those hurts, and he is with you in the midst of those hurts. So every time they come up, you can go before God and say, I am hurting on the inside. And know that God says, I love you and I'm with you. The hurt doesn't always go away, but God's presence and his comfort certainly help it to hurt a little bit less. And so we never want to give anybody a false expectation of what a relationship with God is like. Like when you have a relationship with God, you're happy all the time. You're never going to hurt again. Like, no, the relationship with God is that when those times come, you're no longer alone. When those times come, you are seen and you are known. And so I think just bringing it to that of like, yes, I know it's hard. Sympathize first. I know that it is hard, and I know that those hurts come. But know that when you are hurting like that, you can turn to God and he will listen to you and he will be there with you.
That's incredible. Thank you so much, Crystal, for sharing that. Whether it's physical hurts or spiritual hurts, we know we have kids and families in our ministries who are experiencing hurt. So what are some things we can do when we know kids and families are going through difficult times?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think best as possible with kids in the room, if you know a child is going through a difficult time, one of the best things you can do, this is all opinion, so feel free to disagree, listeners, if you think, nope, there's something totally different. But in my experience, one of the best things you can do with those kids is in public settings, treat them as every other kid. Unless you've had a private conversation with them or their parent of some special need that they need in that moment, and then be able to walk through that with the group gracefully. But as much as possible, let them be a kid. Let them feel like they're part of the group. They're not sticking out like a sore thumb, because they probably already feel like they are in some way or another. So publicly, I would say within a group context with kids, I would continue to lead, obviously with sensitivity, but lead in a way that helps that child feel like they belong and they're included, just like everyone else. Be sensitive to the conversations you have. And then I would say privately, so, one-on-one, not one-on-one with the child, we don't recommend that, but like with one-on-one with the family, or, whatever is appropriate and follows your church's guidelines, to be intentional with conversations and just let them know, hey, I'm here. One of the something that I heard recently, that I feel like is really helpful in a lot of contexts is, you're not always responsible for someone else, but you're responsible to them. So we're responsible to be respectful, to be kind, to care, to love, but we're not responsible for what that person is going through. So you don't have to necessarily carry all of those things to the same level that they are. But you can, let families and kids know that you're there with them, that you love them, that you care about them, that you're available, and what you're available for. Be specific. Oftentimes when kids and families are grieving, something like, how can I help, is actually not a helpful question. Absolutely. Because now you are putting on that grieving family to provide the solution for their own pain, and then tell you what to do so that you can then be the solution that they have already thought out for you. So maybe don't ask, how can I help? But be specific in things that you know you can help with. Hey, I'm here for you. If you need me to pick up dinner for you one night, or if you need me to, grab the kids from school and, tell me about the process with school and how I can be one of those safe adults that picks up your kid and brings them to your house, like whatever that looks like in age appropriate ways, offer some suggestions of things you can do. Don't ask the family to kind of come up with that solution, or just say, hey, how can I help? And then be open to, that kind of opens you up to say, oh, actually, I can't do that. So yeah, those would be just some simple tips that I would share.
Yeah. Kayla, you definitely took what I was thinking about a little bit of the don't say, how can I help? Because that puts a lot of pressure on people who are going through hard times. But giving very specific ideas of like, hey, I would love to plan a meal train for you. Would that be okay? I would love to babysit. I'm available for the next 2 weeks, any night that you want. Is that something that you would want to take me up on? And really just putting it out there, so their only decision needs to be yes or no, nothing else, which can be the best. I think too, being consciously consistent, if that makes sense. A lot of times when we find out that a family in our church is going through a hard time, there can be a lot of rallying around that family right when that thing happens, or right when we find out about it. But we know hurt lasts for months, sometimes years. And so when we have families who are experiencing hurt, like, be there in the moment, but then a few weeks later, check in. A few months later, check in. Continue to remind these families, hey, I'm praying for you. I want you to know my offer of babysitting still stands. Would love to help you out. Because, and I think all of us can sit here and say that we know this, that when you go through hard times, the attention is almost overwhelming in the moment. But then soon it sort of feels like, does anybody see me? Does anybody remember that I'm still hurting? And let's remember, like we say this in Hi-Fi all the time, this is why we're so into real connection and true belonging, right? We know that as we help preschoolers and kids feel seen and known and like they belong, it is helping them recognize that God sees them, knows them, and has a place for them to belong. The same is true for these families. Like, we want them to know that God knows and cares about their hurts, and we can help show that by also knowing and caring about their hurts in a way that is meaningful, in a way that is intentional, and in a way that is specific. And also, if you as a leader feel overwhelmed and ill-equipped to provide the resources that a family might need, don't feel like you need to do it on your own. Like totally resource in your church. Talk with other people on staff, talk with other leadership, and say, we've got this situation. I'm not sure what to do. How can we help this family? So don't ever feel like you have to be the only one to provide that help and that just what those families need in that moment. We are the church. Like, we have a whole church body who is ready to step up and help in this way.
Those are such helpful and practical answers. Thank you all so much. And thank you all. Thank you, listeners, for joining us, for using Hi-Fi, for building real connection and true belonging in your ministries that you lead. And until next time, know we are praying for you and cheering you on.